So I think all of us mostly are aware. We are just continuing with the education of the psychic being, and we have been following this book. I think Shraddha ji is joining for the first time. Sandeep ji had joined earlier also. So just for you, Shraddha ji, we have been studying this little workbook actually, mostly uh, this one especially on psychic education. I don't know if you can see this correctly. It's based on the writings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo by N. Happis. It's a quite famous workbook, and we started with the mental education, vital education, and the idea of integral education by what Sri Aurobindo and Mother have suggested. And then now, at the moment, we are continuing with the education of the psychic, which is itself a kind of a huge topic in itself. And this is the workbook that I shared. We have been mostly closely following, along with some other things also. So the topic that we have been covering the last week was this choice and preference. And this we had already covered a bit, so I'll just move ahead. And what comes in the as an obstacle, one can say, not really an obstacle, but what needs to be transformed is our egoism, right, on the path, because that doesn't let us choose correctly. That doesn't let us choose things which are beneficial for us, rather than we go through our impulses and ideas, our rigid opinions, and hence end up harming our own self and not basically choosing what is beneficial for me there. So Sri Aurobindo says that ego is the helper and ego is the bar. Why ego is the helper? If we want to share our reflections, those of us who have reflected upon this, what is helpful in the design of the ego? Why ego needs to be there? Would anyone like to maybe share their reflections on this? Because usually ego is portrayed as the devil, but it has its significance, and that's why it is there in the manifestation. Otherwise, it would not exist at all. So anyone who wants to share their present insights, reflections on how is ego a helper, and how is ego the bar also. I think for that we may be a little more aware of, but what is the help that comes from the ego? Anyone who wants to share? The purpose of ego, basically, so no one is sharing. Mother and Sri Aurobindo share that the manifestation, it started from the inconscient, as if complete reversal of the divine, and it's like a mixed up structure, mixed up kind of a mess, from which if I have to develop an individuality, okay, this is me, then I have to have an ego. Okay, how do I live this life as this person? So just talking of human ego here, right now. So the need of ego, and healthy ego, a receptive ego. That's why ego, we have three qualities of ego: the tamasic one, the rajasic ego, and the sattvic ego. And tamasic ego is the one that I don't even feel the need to move, in the sense I'm okay as I am. I don't want to change. I don't want to be better version of myself. There is no admission of an incompletion within. There is no admission that yes, there is something lacking which needs to be worked out. So that is tamas, like a lot of inertia. Many of us find ourselves there from time to time, like settling down in comfort zones and getting really stagnated. Tamas, in lots of inertia, like a stone is, it doesn't move. Then comes Rajasic ego. Rajasic ego is a bit better. Mother says that passions are better than inertia. So Rajasic ego is a bit better than the tamasic state, because there I am ready to move. So if I have developed a passion, if I have, say, fallen in love and I want to meet the person, so I would move and go out and maybe travel distances. So I'm ready to take the challenge. There is still an inner incompletion, but I am trying to work it out. Like, there is no open admission of it, but by consumption, that is what Rajas is. It's bhog, it's consumerism. By consumption of things, of people, of emotions, of thinking, whatever, consuming anything, I'm trying to satisfy that inner incompletion unknowingly. So that is Rajasic. It's a bit better, considered to be a little bit better, because it moves. And if I'm ready to move, then even if I face a failure, if not a success, facing a failure, it will make me learn something. I'll grow in consciousness. And then comes the Sattvic ego, which is an ego which kind of a state of being where a recognition is there that yes, there is something that needs to be worked upon in the being. There is an inner incompletion, void that one feels, and one wants to really learn what is the bestest possible way from a guru or a master, or good words, good scriptures. What is the bestest possible way in order to fulfill this inner completion or dissolve this inner incompletion? So there we come to Sattvic ego, which again is ego state only. It's still like a separate individuality, but it's far, far better, because I am ready to receive the light. First of all, I am noticing that there is darkness in me, there is littleness in me, and I'm also noticing that I want a change which is healthy change. I don't want to consume now, but I want a transformation which is a healthier transformation, which is not making me dependent on consumption. So that is what we, when we listen to gurus, then it's a state of receptivity. So that's Sattvic character. It's a state of receptive character, more flexible than the other two. And with Shiva's Trishul, in hand, he has this Trishul. Shivji has Trishul in hand, which is kind of killing all these three gunas. So our journey does not end at the Sattvic character. Our journey begins, one can say, going beyond that ego zone. So with his Trishul, he kills all these three gunas in which the soul is trapped. The soul is trapped in these three qualities of tamas, rajas, and sattva. And Shivji, the Shiva's consciousness is beyond all these three qualities, three gunas. So as one travels forward from the tamas to rajas, then walking like a pendulum in between, then coming to sattvic, more sattvic character, and even that is an identity that, see, I am more sattvic. That becomes a part of identity. While soul is identity less. Soul consciousness, Shiva consciousness is identity less. It does not need any identity to be. So to go beyond the state of egoism then requires touching the Shiva's consciousness, which is our true self, which is our true nature, the presence of consciousness within. So identifying ourselves as that presence of consciousness, which makes me see a thought, which makes me see a feeling, owing to the presence of which I am able to, sense, perceive, or think, or whatever. So knowing myself as that, and takes, again, it's a long journey of practice, sadhana. That's why we call it sadhana. So that was about the egoism. And Mother says that, I just read this and we'll share, take reflections. There are many shades of egoism. Example, to want to pay back to those who have hurt you. So I have this solid sense of separate self, and then whoever hurts me, I feel the victim and I want to pay back. So this duality is, I'm caught in egoism. There are people who say, I have been made to suffer and I shall make them suffer. So again, this separateness, that you and me and all the fights, even at a global level, like nations, we keep on fighting. this indeed becomes nasty enough for people to notice that it should not exist. So when we enter into this game of you and me and the clashes, it becomes nasty, mother says, and the nastiness tells me that that's not the right way to go. Whenever things are getting nasty, we can be sure that that's not the right way to go. We are entering into a zone which is not our true nature. And that's why we, for example, in Buddhism, we have so much of stress on being kind, genuinely kind, being wishing good for others, being compassionate, generous, because that is our true nature. Our true nature is not jealousy and anger and hatred. There we cannot be happy. No one can be happy there. In our being, it is only egoism which always suffers. And that if there was no egoism, there would be no suffering. So it is a very beautiful kind of a little sutra or a mantra that mother gives, that if I'm suffering right now, whether it's a mental suffering, emotional suffering, any kind of suffering, pain may be there, physical pain may be there and I can go through it. But if I'm really inflicting suffering upon myself, thinking how bad are the people, how bad is the world, and emotionally kind of ruminating about it, it's only that I'm trapped in the egoistic zone. Without the egoistic zone, life is not a struggle. So this is a very good hint for me to come back and check my inner status, that, okay, today I'm suffering. I'm just clinging to things. I'm clinging to ideas, opinions, what people think about me, what I think about people, what kind of a world it is. So just sticking too heavily to my ideas about the world, how it should be, how it is not. And when I do that, I suffer, because that's not my true nature. Clinging is not my true nature. So no one can be happy with clinging. That's why relationships suffer a lot with clinging. When we are attaching to people too much, we suffer. Relationships turn sour. Too much expectations, too much demands, because that's not who we truly are. So I'll just stop here, pause here, and we'll take up reflections. Anyone who wants to share anything? Yes, Sandeep ji.
Thank you.
संदीप जी, आपकी आवाज थोड़ी
Hello, I have not started speaking yet.
Okay, now it's okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for it, Monica ji. Yeah. So no, not so. Just as we started, right, regarding the definition of ego and how it was the helper, and now how it is a bar. So. Ego generally comes with mind. Till animal level in evolution, there was no such ego as such. But generally, it developed when the mind arrived, and it is currently playing a part of to take the human generally the evolutionary process. It is everything is going there, as you have mentioned it correctly, that it is started from the inconscient. So the journey from the complete inconscient to the superconscient, right? So in that journey, he is playing has played, actually I would say, the role of a more making of the divine of the human. Actually, in a layman term, we can understand, the first timers, we used to give this example like a contractor. So divine has appointed ego as a contractor to build a house for him. Okay. Now assume that you want to build a house and you are given a contractor to build it. Now the contractor is everything he has done, whatever is it is been expected and everything is now fine. But the moment you are coming back and you are asking to give the position back to me, then the contractor is saying, no, I have made this a house, so I will stay here. So what would you say? You can take as much money as you can, that is fine, but you cannot stay here, right? So because your time is over, whatever job has been assigned to you, that is done.
You cannot stay here because I am the owner and I have to stay. That is what ego has done till now, that it has made the human capable. It's a complete a formation of an individual, I would say. For that has been done by the ego. So it has taken the mind to its utmost position where it should be. With all those things, right? So now ego has helped us to achieve what we are today, but now that has to be surrendered. So that is the process, and now it is telling that no, I won't go, because till now I have helped so much, and you cannot push me to go away. But this is the moment that we have to realize that whatever has been helped us, right, that is only is becoming a kind of obstacle for me, and that is not letting me to move forward, right, to exceed myself. So that's what the end will come whenever the ego will be completely individualized, and it will be one pointedly submit itself to the divine, and then only that purpose would be fulfilled. So now that is the sadhana, actually, as you correctly mentioned, that is the yoga that we are doing, that it is a vanishing of ego. The sooner it would happen, the better for us. Okay, so but that again it will take some, because human means it is like a tail the animal has, right? So the moment human comes, the ego also comes with it. Mahan Manishi like every other person has ego once they come to this earth. Even Arjuna has it, we know, because the moment he is refusing for war, out of what? It is out of human ego only. One term, one form of ego, that he is refusing to take the arms. Then Shri Krishna has to lot of things, Gita and all have happened. So this is what the ego's problem is. So whenever it thinks that divine has sent me to this earth for his manifestation, but the ego is saying that I want to establish where the I has to go, the actual real me has to come out, and that is the the kingdom of the divine, the kingdom of the soul, that has to come up. So that is the way it will again we'll discuss a lot more things and that. But as of now, yes, and the initial phase to identify that ego is egoism. So that is quite visible, that ahankar we tell that ahankar. So it is visible. I am I am the boss, I can do this, I have these many preferences, I think like that. So every other thing, whatever we can think of, is based out of that egoism, and that is quite visible. And to reduce that, we cannot just go and directly touch ego. It is very, very dangerous, actually. Mother also has said, and somewhere I've read. So how we can reach out to it? Slowly, gradually, vanishing of the desire, fulfilling, handling of the desire in a more divine way, taking them towards the actual source by connecting with the spirituality. So these things will gradually it will vanish, and finally we have to go and touch the ego. At that point of time, it will all lose its the powers. These are all its powers. It will gradually it will lose, and finally it will surrender to the divine. So yes, we'll discuss it more going forward. I'm sure Monica ji has a lot more things in her update. So thanks for allowing me. Gratitude to the divine Mother Ma. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. That was a beautiful example of the contractor, that you were mentioning. And whatever I think you shared, completely resonating with the words of Mother also. And, I personally also agree with whatever you were sharing. And it's, as you were sharing, that it's a long sadhana, and just like old habits die hard. So ego just is a whole old habit that we have, since we have lived as an ego long enough, old enough. And the example I share here is that once you set a kind of a ball in motion, if you throw a ball very strongly, it takes a while, owing to the momentum it has been running with. It takes a while before it comes to a complete halt, as you were sharing, the complete surrender of the ego. So we will keep on seeing the ripples of the ego in the being, and not to get worried with those ripples, as you were sharing, that to become conscious of the ripples of ego. That's what Mother says, become conscious of each and every movement in your being. Because in consciousness, ego loses its power. What is ego? Ego is a bundle of tendencies and patterns that I stick to, that I know as myself. And so far as I have been living unconsciously, the tendencies and patterns have been living my life. I have not been living my life. I am thinking that this is me, this tendency is me, this behavior is me. But now, as mother says, becoming more conscious of why you do this, what makes you do that, what makes you behave in this way. So the more I become conscious of my own thoughts, feelings, and whatever is happening in me as a result of stimulus from outside, from people, and whatever interactions that we are doing, we see that, oh, why did I have to think like that? So I become conscious of a thought pattern, and then slowly, as you were saying, since it's a long time and it's a discomforting process, letting go of the ego is not a comforting process, because since I have been used to live as the ego for a long time, it takes a while that I get now a comfort with the non-egoistic state of being, more psychic, as you were saying, that putting, even if desires are there, showing them their highest possibility, picking them up in the light of consciousness and turning the desire into aspiration. So it takes a while, and I still have to go through a lot of effort. That's why in the previous theme in the psychic education, we were taking up effort. So what is effortless for me right now is to live as tendencies, patterns. Sri Aurobindo uses this line in Savitri, as if human life is like stuck in grooves, going round and round in circle. So as if there are grooves in which my CD is moving, goal and goal and goal. So if I want to break through these patterns, I have to become conscious. So the whole journey is becoming more and more and more conscious of the darker parts of the being, so far which have remained in darkness. And in the light of consciousness, everything changes, because that light itself is love. And love, mother says, divine mother is the manifestation of love itself. That's the transforming power. The only transforming power is this light of consciousness with which I become conscious of movements within, because that is synonymous with love. Consciousness is love. And it's non-judgmental. That's why no matter how many sins I may have done, I still have the ability to get back to my Buddha nature, because it is kept safe. In Savitri, there comes this line that this Buddha nature, the enlightened nature, the psychic being, is kept safe in our being, no matter how far we may want to go. It doesn't matter, because in eternity, there is enough time. So lifetimes, okay, after lifetimes of being a sinner, I want to come back. Okay, welcome, most welcome, because I have the free will also. Divine has given us this choice. Mother says that the surrender is a free surrender. It's a free will based surrender. So in one moment, I can be completely surrendered. Beautiful, lovely experience. In the other moment, a tendency becomes more heavy. So I give in. I say to the mother, not now. And in that moment, I don't want to surrender. The ego comes back, pops back again. Then I repent later. Oh, why did I do that? So even that repentance is good, because then it makes me do better the next time. So yeah, I think it's a really a long sadhana and long process. But the beauty is that the process itself is joy. Giving up of the ego in bits and pieces, becoming conscious of our own patterns, tendencies, questioning ourselves, becoming a kind of a scientist towards our own being, more exploring our own being. That gives us joy. That's why we are walking the path. It's not for that, if I walk this path, will I get joy at the end of surrender? It's not like that, that if I pass 12th, will I get into IAS? Not like that. It's not a means to an end. The process itself is joy. And without that, we cannot walk this path. If we are not having the joy of loving the mother, loving words of Mother Sri Aurobindo, or for example, any other master which help us on the way, without love, the journey cannot take us far. So, yeah. So it's just an impression, I feel that since we have lived long enough as egos, as patterns, as tendencies, now when I slowly become conscious of the egoistic movements, I still see them in me. Kabir says that the sadhak has to be aware as long as he has breath in the body. You were saying, Sandeep ji, that even Manishis, when take birth, ego is there, and slowly they become more and more conscious of their own divinity. So, and even for enlightened masters, if you hear from their own words, they say that you cannot drop vigilance for even a moment, because ego is like a mirage. It's there, it's not there, it's there, it's not there, like it can appear anytime. So never to be too sure that, oh, now I have become egoless. Now it's other people who have to let go of the ego. That's the biggest form of ego, I have become egoless. So this would never happen. Vigilance, mother really stresses on vigilance, that vigilance is sincerity, and vigilance is the key cornerstones of this path. So to be always alert and aware that mera abhi nahi hua, that still a lot of work has to be done in me. So that is something which is absolutely essential and required, the vigilance, from us. So let's continue. I'll just put this back on. Yeah. Many shades of egoism to look and sweep the place clean. So this is our, for example, this is our lifetime of a task, that the divine has given us employment. What is the employment? Throughout, be a cleaner and a sweeper. And to be a cleaner and a sweeper, I have to be conscious of the garbage. So if I think that garbage is really holy garbage and I don't want to throw it away, then I will suffer after some time. So the suffering will tell me that now the place has to be cleaned. And that's why Sri Aurobindo says that the pain is a hammer of the god to break a dead resistance in mortal's heart. So again and again we become like walls, thick and rigid like walls. And then we suffer. Ego makes us suffer. And then we have to change. So it's win-win situation. If I'm not working on myself all by myself, like with the obviously grace is there, which is making me work, then ego will make me suffer. Let me follow the movement of ego for as long as we can, and then I will suffer. Then I will know that, okay, I have to change. So it's a win-win situation. There is no other destiny than the divine. The only destination, the only origin is divinity. So we cannot really go wrong. Although mother says that if you really want to help with the divine work, you collaborate with the divine work. You collaborate, become a collaborator. So as Sandeep ji was mentioning this example of contractor. So you help getting conscious of the contractor and then slowly showing him the way out of the house, because he has become too used to be here. And as long as he is there, the divine work will wait. And even there, I would say that noticing the contractor ego and noticing and dissolving the contractor, that itself is divine work. So can I collaborate with it? Can I not defend myself? Because mostly we are found defending ourselves. So can I not defend my own weaknesses and impulses, which now need to go? So shamelessly moving on like a warrior, Sri Aurobindo says, like an Aryan spirit. He never settles down with the little. He says, okay, this much cleaning has happened, I want to clean more, I want to clean more. So the cleaning goes on and on and on. Relentless cleaner, one can say, or a sweeper. Never getting satisfied with the progress. Mother says that self-satisfaction is the biggest obstacle. So never getting satisfied that mera to ho gaya, dusron ka kab hoga. People who have already found their soul and are living out the manifestation of their soul. To Jyoti Priya, mother said once, Jyoti Priya, Judith Tyberg, she was I think from America, a very intense worker of the mother. And to her, mother said that, not directly to her, that she has already found the soul. And now for her, what is the work? That in the interactions she does in the divine work, the work that she's doing for the mother, in whatever interactions she's interacting with people, and if she faces challenges there, now those challenges will tell her that whatever challenge is outside, I have to now overcome it inside. So even for her, mother did not say that, okay, now you have become the divine warrior and there's nothing you have to change in yourself, because this game never ends. That's the beauty of it. Since the divine is infinite, the work on our own self is also infinite. And it's a beautiful work if one gets to it. So I think this really makes us forever employed, because otherwise we become too berozgar, like, what do I do? Now I have become an adult, I have a job, family, like, really bored with life. But when we look at our inner movements and see there is so much to sort and organize and clarify, then we see that there is nothing really that can stop me from progressing. And self-exceeding, Sandeep ji mentioned this word, self-exceeding. And mother says that only human beings have capacity of self-exceeding. So whatever I am today, I can be a still better version of myself today. Okay, I may be kind today, but I can be still more kinder. I may have an open heart, my heart can still open more. So that's the beauty, that this journey never ends with the divine, since the divine is infinite. So the journey is also an infinite progression. In prayers, meditations also, mother points at this, that it is an infinite progression from light to a greater light, from like one realization to a greater and yet greater realization. That's really beautiful, if we really walk this path, that there is so much that we have to explore within our own being. Who has the time to comment on other people? Yeah, so keep sharing whenever anyone has anything to share. Otherwise, I'll just keep on moving ahead. Please unmute and share whenever you feel ready. Just a second. So now here in the workbook, they talk about working through egoism. I think some bits we may have already touched in the discussion so far. How to work through egoism. Yeah, one thing I want to, just add on, I think Sandeep ji already touched upon it. Mother says that if you want to offer yourself to the divine, what would you offer? If you have nothing in yourself which you can call your own, which you can call something of beauty, what will you offer? So before surrender of the ego comes a development of a beautiful ego, one can say. So a development of a temporary individuality. And that has to be beautiful. That can be beautiful. Ego doesn't always have to be really corrupt. If I've been developing myself as a learner in this life, as a student of this life. Now, mother says that while you stumble upon your true vocation, before that, whatever little comes in your way, do it with devotion, do it with surrender, and find out what you like. What are your natural inclinations? Okay, would you like drawing better, or maybe would you like gymnastics better? And put your effort to it, give yourself to it. So slowly, whatever natural swabhava inclinations I may have, what am I doing? I am developing them. And this is my unique individuality that I am developing. Everyone is born with a special permutation and combination of these, like beautiful talents, all of us. And such is the uniqueness that all of us are very, very unique, very special. Someone is more kinder naturally, and he's more generous, so maybe good at social work and connecting with people. Other may be more intellectually driven. So that is our talent. And mother says to find that out, to dig it out, see what am I liking, see what am I preferring. Okay, this comes naturally to me. This gives me joy when I do it. And I also feel, that elevated. So to find these things in myself and to give your time to that. So developing like a rich personality, or still an ego only. And now when I have developed it enough and worked on it enough, then you go to mother and you say, mother, look, this is what I have for you, and I want to offer this at your feet. This is, mother says, this is what is giving. What will you give if you have not anything to give? You cannot give a mess to the mother. You will beautify the mess, at least make it a little better. So people who have a strong individuality, they may appear like, oh my God, this person has a very strong character and very intense. Mother says that they can be very helpful if they surrender. If they surrender. Because we need, if for example, for leaders, we need personalities which are, which can stand, not like, I don't have any opinion. Okay, you say that's also okay. You also say that is also okay. So we need to follow the truth even in our opinions. So as we were, just came to me on what Sandeep ji was sharing earlier on the ego thing, that it is a helper, and let us develop this personality, this temporary personality, as mother says, before we offer it and the psychic individuality comes forward. So I give Alokda again and again, Alok Pandey, he shares that divine gives us this exchange offer that you give me the old and take the new. So giving the old temporary contractor personality, okay, my job is done. I have done, been here enough. Now you tell me what to do. So you shed more light in the being, and so that the true personality, the psychic individuality comes out, which is like a slave to truth, which is sticking to truth all the time, very loyal to truth, and wants nothing but devotion to the divine in whatever work we do. Before that comes forward, this temporary has to be nurtured and developed. So I'll just put it on. Yeah, so working through the egoism, reminding yourself that something in you is stronger than this egoism, and that the divine is omnipotent. So whenever I see a ripple of an egoistic movement, if I become conscious of it, and at times I can be frustrated, that, oh my God, it's still there. We do get frustrated at times, but accepting the fact that it will be there, becoming okay with it, that it will be there, but I don't need to follow it. That's my choice. Following is my choice, since we are on the theme of choice and change. Whether I want to now follow the egoistic movement or not, that's my choice. So reminding that there is something more powerful, more truthful in our being than the egoism, and that the divine is omnipotent, all powerful. So while the pattern of jealousy, ego, or the anger or hate may be appearing very heavy and powerful, I have to remind myself that there is something in me which is even more powerful than that. And one example that I had shared in our groups, this master called Tenzing Palmo, Jetsunma Tenzing Palmo. So she was sharing that once while she was meditating in the cave, she meditated for a long time. So she was just confronted by a very dark energy, like really a dark shadow appearing in front of her and kind of scaring, and she was surrounded by the pictures of Buddha and Tara and Chenrezig, and she was doing a Buddhist sadhana there in the cave. And she did not get deterred by the dark shadow at all. She said that, excuse me, what do you think you are doing here while I am surrounded by so much, so many Buddhas and enlightened beings? What on earth are you here for? So I think just looking at that courage which faith provides, that here I am with the mother's force, what power does a tendency has, in front of that mother's force in me. So to cling to mother's force and light in my being, and slowly we see that the force or the grip of egoistic movements also kind of goes away, and I don't have to be bothered about that much. So reminding oneself that there is something more stronger and omnipotent. Yeah, anything anyone wants to share here? Let me give a pause. Okay. Don't get shocked by seeing something ugly in yourself. Many a times on this path, we may think that, oh my God, I've been here with mother 10 years and still there is jealousy, still there is competition and wanting name, fame, or whatever, whatever may come in the name of the ego. So not to get shocked by it. So recognizing that it will be there. And I think it makes us grounded, because if these movements are not there, and if I may think that mera to ho gaya, I am over it, I have crossed over, I have become egoless. But when we see and when we are able to notice these movements, that itself is such a blessing, because something in me is conscious of these movements, and the movements are not having just their own game. The consciousness is there. So not to get shocked. It's just okay if the spiders are there in the room, but not to follow the dictate of the spiders. Calmly offer the thing by holding it up to the divine. Do not hide or suppress it. And there is a very famous example, maybe some of us may have heard about it, where mother, I think a sadhak came and wanted to show mother her room. And mother went to her room, and she just, it was like looking very neat and clean. She had cleaned it very nicely. And mother went straight into a drawer, which was full of stuff, like, kind of clogged up stuff, which was not arranged neatly. So mother says that, do not hide your shadows from me. Give your shadows to me, because otherwise, how would I throw light on it? Then the other person says in other question that, mother, you are omnipresent, omniscient, that you know already our shadows. So what is the point of me telling you that, mother, this is my shadow and please shed some light? So mother says, it's not about me. It's about you becoming conscious of your shadows and also the offering that you are doing. Because the consciousness has to grow in here. Life is about growth of consciousness. So it's not about mother, because mother is antaryami, mother is everywhere. She knows all the uglinesses and weaknesses, whatever needs to be worked upon. But unless I become conscious of whatever needs to be worked upon, how will the effort happen? So the moment I see a tendency in me, which I don't want to follow, what do? I look at it. Yes, mother, look, it's still there. Mother, now I offer it to you. You take care of this tendency. I don't want to follow it. And you come back to the breath or remembering the mother, or whatever task one may be doing. So noticing the tendencies, noticing the ugly movements, unpleasant movements, and offering it up to the mother or to the light of consciousness, which is all transforming. Not to suppress it, or not to say that it's not there now. That mera ho gaya, I am all clean, and there is nothing I need to clean now. So not to go there, because the work is a long work. It's a long work. So self-exceeding, here we self-exceed. The moment I give up a tendency, I become a little better version of myself. So self-exceeding, calmly acknowledging the negative part in ourselves, while at the same time holding it up to the light. And every time we do this, every time I do not follow the dictate of that pattern, behavior, or tendency, or anger, or jealousy, or whatever is coming, every time I do this, that part loses its might, loses its power, grip over me. Try to live from the trust that light, force, or wisdom will take care and do the best for you. So again and again, becoming conscious of the tendency and not agreeing to follow its movement. And slowly, as we do it more often, we also see that those less times where we follow the movement of that that egoistic impulse, we feel very uneasy in the being, and immediately we know I should not have been there. So mother says to be very conscious of this sense of uneasiness. The more we live in the psychic being, the more we follow the truth consciousness, the more uneasy we feel if we are following the ripple of the ego. So following and getting in touch with that uneasiness and using that as a signal that, okay, I should not have been there. That was an egoistic movement. Because light and force act from truth. They always know the best than our outer being can know. So when I'm not following the dictate of tendency, whatever will be done or whatever arises out of a right consciousness will be the right action. Knowing that little mind doesn't know almost anything at all. So having that faith and trust in the universe that I will be guided for whatever action I need to take in this moment. Yeah, let me pause here again. Yeah, anyone wants to shed light or anything that you want to share? I'll continue if there's no reflection further. So there is this little kind of a worksheet for us, which really is helpful, I believe. It takes effort, as we were discussing, it takes effort because we have been used to live as the ego. Now it's effortless for me to continue to live as the ego. But if I want to now drop or surrender the ego more and more and live from the truth consciousness, it takes effort. So the game has to change. It takes effort to choose always what is the highest. So to put that effort, wherever the right effort is needed, I put that effort. Making good use of my energy, life force that is there. It takes effort to choose always what is the highest, because often the lower part and old habits are more in the foreground. There it doesn't take any effort. To follow an old pattern of behavior doesn't need any effort. To follow if an impulse of anger has come, to just follow it, get swayed by it, doesn't need any effort. That's what I've been doing for ages. But now to change the game needs effort. Let your higher aim be vibrant, alive, and in the foreground. So if I know what I want to become, if I know that I don't want to follow this lower movement now, then I can make the change. And this example I had shared with some of you earlier also, that again coming from Tenzing Palmo only, that she shares that following the truth consciousness now and letting go of the older egoistic patterns is almost like, imagine that you are going into a forest, adventuring into a forest, and there is already a way made. Now the moment you go on that way, you always trip and fall and suffer, and there is no other way made. Everywhere there are bushes and bushes and bushes. Now if you want to make a new way for yourself, since way for everyone is unique, we have to chart our own ways. So in this forest, if I have to now chart a new way towards truth consciousness, following my own inner truth, I will have to walk through grass and bushes. And the more I walk through the grass and bushes, then I will see that a new way gets made. But for the new way to get made, I have to walk again and again on the new way. So to choose every time an option comes, follow anger, follow jealousy, or follow truth, I choose. So I make a new path. And now the older path, which was leading me to more trouble, which was already a very solid path, now there reeds and bushes and trees, they begin to develop. Now going there becomes a little difficult. Now I have to put effort if I want to be ego. So, and slowly this path which I take now, following the truth consciousness, this becomes more like easy for me. Like it becomes a highway now later, rather than earlier why it was like full of bushes and trees and all that. So I felt it was a beautiful example to know for each one of us that we will have to walk our own individual path and chart a new territory for us, chart a new kind of a way which is easy, kinder, gentle, full of love, compassion, kindness, progress, growth. joy, all that I have to put effort. Any reflection? Yeah.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yeah. So when you're saying about this path and previously that last time when we were talking about choice, see 2 days back, last week in my house, there'll be a lot of TV going on from morning 12:30 to it goes on and on, but I cannot say anything. So when when nobody was there here, and the house was very peaceful, I started feeling uncomfortable because I was so used to it. As you said that when I was in the road of the weeds and the bushes, I was there. So though I thought, okay, I no, see, they are doing it, I'm not doing it, so I'm something, no. But I started feeling uncomfortable. In the evening after 6, it was very peaceful. But instead of enjoying the peace, I was feeling uncomfortable. Then maybe after 7, I realized that through our discussions, I realized, see, this is what has happened. I have been conditioned in such a way that even if it is peace, I find the peace uncomfortable. So I realized it, and then as you said, I really felt very joyous. Then I came and told mother, see how stupid I am. Even when you give me the peaceful, beautiful situation in a life, that also in my egoistic way, or I don't know what word I have to use there. I feel it. I'm taking it as a very uncomfortable thing. So I felt maybe because of this attitude of mine that many I'm attracting the uncomfortable things. So then I realized it, and from next day onwards, after that, once I realized this, and I went and told mother, and I thanked mother. After that, I felt yes, this is how it should be. Though, but I was so unconscious all these days. I realized that it was so unconscious that I'm into it. It's like I don't know whether I can use this. Like when pigs stay in the mud, they don't realize that they're animals. But in a way, I thought I felt like that, and I came out of it. So that is what. So I thought maybe that last week we were talking about that conditioning, the choice, the effort. And now we were talking about that the egoistic part is so much that it is enjoying only that uncomfortable thing. It is not coming out of even if you're given, life has given, mother has given such a way that you for 2 days you be very peaceful and happy. I was not able to take it. So that's what I wanted to share.
That's a very powerful and beautiful example, Jayashree ji. Thank you for putting it forward. Because, it's very true. In fact, in many psychological issues also, it happens that a person becomes so used to be anxious all the time that when the anxiety is not there, the person feels uncomfortable.
Yes.
Although that's its natural state, but the person doesn't know how to be not anxious, because I have, all my life I've been just anxious. So although I'm suffering, but I begin to kind of be comfortable with that suffering. And that's the thing that has to change. And it's a very auspicious, I would say, discomfort that you went through. Very, very auspicious discomfort of coming close to our true being, and to be okay with that emptiness, that peace that we are not
Yes.
used to. Yes, yes. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful example. I often use this analogy also, that imagine that if I am born with chains in my hand,
Yes.
and I think shared with you also earlier.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've been living with it, many years, 50 years have passed. So one day, one person comes and says, oh my God, why are you living with these chains? And I would say that, where are the chains? Because they have become part of my being. I don't see them as separate from my body. I see them as my being because I've lived with them. So I don't know any other way of being than being with those chains which are part of my being. So then the person may remove the chain for a while, and he would say, see, how do you feel? And I would say, no, put them back. I feel uneasy.
Yes.
And then I would retain that impression of that lightness that I felt when the chain was not there. And then it will make me go forward and put effort. Okay, let me try it again. How? Oh, feels nice. But then I put it again because I'm not used to it. So I think it takes a little while we become used to our true self. Yeah.
Yes, because I prayed to Mother to give me all these things, but when she is ready and giving to me, I'm not ready to take it from her because I am
Lovely.
still in that ego thing.
Yeah.
I just keep it to myself. Okay, Mother, maybe later. I really want to enjoy that, and I don't want to go with her.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful recognition. So I think it's really grace and what powerful blessing that you are able to see all this happening, because otherwise we are not mostly conscious of this happening. So Mother in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo points at this, that it's maybe Savitri or some other. I heard it in Alokda's talk once, that it's a continuous no, an eternal no from our side as human beings, and a very limping yes, that yes, Mother, I want it, but maybe not now, later. So the divine is ready to give us this bonus and grace all the time, but we say maybe later. Yeah. So to recognize that is a beautiful thing in itself. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, anyone wants to add on anything else? Okay, so parallelly, if in absence of any comment, parallelly we have to, see, if there is a cigarette in front of me and I want to now leave the cigarette, since we are all addicted to our patterns and the older ways of living, I cannot just say, no, I won't touch the cigarette. I won't touch the cigarette. That won't work. So parallelly, as I am wanting to leave the older ways of living, which is egoistic ways of living, I have to give myself a higher way also. What is my highest ideal? Because I have energy, life force is there with me, prana, so much of energy is there in me. So if I'm not putting it in the addictive part now, where will I be putting that energy? So that rehabilitative aspect, I feel, is very, very crucial. Otherwise, I can say 10 times to cigarette no, but 11th time it will come, since I have no other engagement for me. I will pick it up. Okay, I have nothing to do. Let me smoke it. Cigarette is just an example. It's just true for any other tendency or pattern that I want to give up now. So parallelly, as I am removing the unnecessary from my life, I have to bring more loftier and higher stuff in which I want to be engaged. And there is no particular stuff which is higher or lofty. In anything, whenever I do with a true consciousness, Mother says, anything that you are doing, put a drop of true consciousness in it and you have done your job. So being fully aware and conscious in that truth consciousness, if I do a work, whether it's taking care of a house or child or doing transcription work, listening to a talk, giving a talk, whatever, it can be any work. Because even in spiritual work, we can become egoistic. So ego has no bar. Ego doesn't see any border that, okay, this is spiritual area, I'm not going to enter. In fact, spiritual people tend to have even so-called, highly inflated egos. So for us to be vigilant of that, and to also see that in whatever work I'm doing, can I put a drop of true consciousness? Can I do fully, heartfully, doing it as a devotion, as a service? So parallelly, as I am rejecting or removing the unnecessary tendencies, not following the tendencies, patterns, the older ways of ego, what is my highest ideal? Okay, I want to be closer to my true self all the time. Okay, how do I go about it? And using that, putting effort there, So if a tendency comes, if a ripple of anger comes, and I don't want to for a moment go there, I can be detached. I cling to the breath. I stay with the breath. I stay with being aware of being aware. I stay as awareness. So this parallel work is, I believe personally, that it's very, very crucial. If I am not knowing myself as the anger, who am I knowing myself as? Only neti is not going to suffice. If neti, not anger, that is not going to suffice. Who am I when I am not anger? I am the awareness of the anger. Anger is just an example. It may not be possible in overwhelming movements of anger. There may be another tool that may be need to use, but just an example. So this thing, just that higher way, aim, my higher aim, that I want to be at all the times conscious of mother's presence or my own inner consciousness, truth consciousness within. So to put effort there, formulate your deepest, highest ideal. What helps you to keep it alive? Thinking, reflecting over it. How will you remind yourself to live from the deepest being? Because we need constant reminders as we fall into forgetfulness again and again. We fall into amnesia again and again. The patterns are so strong. So to remind ourselves from time to time, what are the pointers that I will use? And everybody would have different pointers. It cannot be the same. Formulating short-term goals, saying, okay, I look at 7 days and what helps me go in the right direction, clinging to the breath, just reflecting on the breath or coming back to the breath in the day 10 times or 100 times a day, as many times as I want to do. So whatever helps on the way. And then if I regularly do this and say set a target of, they suggest in the worksheet that if you set a target of say 5 days, 4 days, and see whether that tool has been working okay for you, that really can help. So here, what are we doing really? We are becoming more and more conscious, vigilant of egoistic ripples coming. And then every time egoistic ripple is coming, I am using the free will, the choice that I don't want to follow it now. I've done that enough. And I want to cling to the breath. I want to know myself as awareness, stay there, stay there, stay there. And whatever work I may be doing, I do it with full consciousness. I found this very helpful actually. This tool can be really, really helpful, that reminding ourselves of what do I really want to be, if not anger. And as I think Jayashree in the last sharing last weekend, you were sharing that even the anger, I think it was anger that you were mentioning, when it was arising, I told myself nothing was working. Then I told myself, I am peace and light. I am peace and light. And then you feel, how do I feel when I become peace and light? So parallelly, as you were able to negate the anger or the jealous or whatever movement, you also were able to stabilize yourself as peace and light, and to embody how would peace behave, how would light behave, whenever we can do it. Every time it may not be possible, but again, as we grow in baby steps, so whenever it becomes possible. Yeah. So I think we can stop here for today, although there is more also which I can share, but it's good to take little bits and pieces and not just do it all at once. Since with mothers and Sri Aurobindo's words, it's always little much is enough, like a little candy and sweet, and you can keep it in your mouth throughout the day and ruminate and reflect over it and work and put effort over it. So I would personally like to stop here. If there are any reflections, we can take that. Anyone wants to share anything before we close?
Just one more point, if I'm audible, just before we wrap up. Yes, as mother has rightly said that, right? Everyone knows that. So whenever we do something, whenever we act something, it is out of the ego part will definitely come. So there is no escape from that as of now. But mother is telling that if the attitude is like, tell your ego that your time has come. Now you have to go and completely submerged into the activity which will lead us to the divine. So that would definitely, help us reducing the ego more and more as we move forward in this path. So identification and acceptance that yes, I have ego is the first step. Then that has to be surrendered to the divine because it has to be transformed. We cannot escape it. Correct. So that's what the integral yoga is. It is all about transformation. The ego also will be transformed. So little by little, if we can do it in our whatever we say, whatever we do, whatever we feel, whatever our thoughts is, everything we can, if we can start offering and surrendering to the divine will take care about those things and the impurities, and will eventually be transformed. It will remain sincere, and that effort part that is very important as of we are for now, because a lot of people say that once the supplemental will come down, we don't have to do anything. I have personally heard these things, but that is not true. Personal effort is required as long as we have ego. So, and based on that, proportional to that effort, the grace will act. It is not unconditional. It is based upon the condition, and the condition is how much sincerely we are putting the effort. It is not the effort which will bring the result, but the proportionate of our sincerity, the effort what we are putting, the grace will act, equally. So, we have to start doing it from right away, and that's what. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sandeep ji. Yes, resonates fully. Yes. Yeah. As long as you said, just reiterating, as long as we are, the ego's effort needs to be put. Absolutely. And I think not only Mother and Sri Aurobindo, many masters, Kabir ji has put a lot of effort on effort. He's in many couplets, he has shared that without jatan, without effort and prayas and abhyas, nothing is going to change. So yes, let us put, and we all put effort, look, living as egos, we put so much of effort trying to please people and trying to make the things our own way. So it's not that we don't know how to put effort, it's just that the direction has to be now a choiceful direction. We have to choose that, to always be staying with the truth and putting the direction of effort there. So yeah, let us put the effort in the right direction, all of us, as long as we are there. And yes, taking baby steps ahead. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for reflecting, sharing together. And yeah, we'll see each other next Sunday then. Yeah. I think it would be New Year by then, if I'm not wrong. I don't know. What's the date today? Yeah, 26, maybe New Year. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be the new
New
year.
Year.
Second
Okay.
of Jan.
2nd Jan. Okay,
Second.
perfect. So happy New Year in advance to everyone.
Same to you and all.
Happy New Year in
Happy New
advance.
Year. Yes.
Happy New Year, madam.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Yeah. Everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.